Chosen one, stop lying to yourself about what's been happening right under your nose. The universe has been dropping breadcrumbs of truth all around you, and every fiber of your being knows exactly what time it is. They can keep playing their little games, wearing their masks, spinning their narratives, but we both know the cosmic scales are about to tip in ways that will leave them scrambling to explain away what they've sown. Play pretend, but you know it's karma. Welcome to the reality of being a chosen one, in a world that profits from your spiritual slumber. What they never told you about karma is that it doesn't just come for the guilty, it comes to collect what's owed to you. And chosen one, your collection day is long overdue. The first thread starts with that person who's been circling your energy like a vulture around fresh meat. You know exactly who I'm talking about, the one who always seems to have insider information about your business, who somehow knows your next move before you've even made it fully. They've been watching you, studying your patterns, learning your vulnerabilities, not to support you but to exploit them. While they've been watching you, something else has been watching them. The universe has a ledger, chosen one, and every manipulation, every calculated slight, every moment they've tried to dim your light has been recorded with interest compounding daily. Let me paint you a picture of the last few months, maybe years of your life, because this story has multiple timelines running simultaneously, and they're all about to crash into each other in ways that will leave you breathless. Timeline 1, the energy harvest. There's been someone, maybe multiple someones, who've positioned themselves close enough to benefit from your light while simultaneously working to dim it. This isn't a coincidence. This is calculated spiritual warfare, and you've been the unwitting supply in their energy economy. Think about that person who always seems to need just a little more from you, the friend who calls when they're drowning but disappears when you're celebrating, the colleague who somehow gets credit for ideas that originated in your mind, the family member who treats family gatherings like a performance where you're the opening act and they're the headliner. They made a critical error. They assumed your supply was infinite. They assumed you'd never wake up to what was happening. They assumed wrong. What they didn't realize is that while they were busy playing pretend with their superiority complex, you were accumulating data. Every interaction where they left you feeling drained but somehow couldn't explain why. Every conversation where they managed to make your problems seem insignificant while their minor inconveniences demanded immediate attention and sympathy. Every moment where they positioned themselves as the expert on your own life, offering unsolicited advice that somehow always benefited them more than you. The pattern was so subtle, so carefully orchestrated, that for the longest time you thought it was just coincidence, bad timing, your imagination. Maybe you were being too sensitive, too needy, too much. They were masters at making you question your own perception of reality, gaslighting disguised as guidance, manipulation masquerading as mentorship. But chosen one, your subconscious was keeping score, even when your conscious mind was making excuses for their behavior. That's why certain interactions left you feeling confused and depleted, even when nothing overtly negative happened. That's why you'd walk away from conversations with them feeling somehow smaller, even when they'd been supportive. Your energy body was registering attacks that your mental body wasn't equipped to recognize yet. They had a system, you see, a carefully crafted approach that they'd probably used on others before you and fully intended to use on others after you. Step 1. Identify someone with genuine spiritual gifts, authentic compassion, or natural abundance. Step 2. Position themselves as indispensable to that person's success or happiness. Step 3. Create a dependency dynamic where the chosen one feels obligated to share their energy, resources, or opportunities. Step 4. Slowly drain what they need while giving just enough back to keep the chosen one invested. It's vampirism disguised as friendship, parasitism packaged as partnership. Timeline 2. The rejection cycle. Simultaneously, there's been another pattern running in your life, the calculated rejection game. Someone has been playing puppet master with your emotions, creating a rhythm of acceptance and rejection that was designed to keep you in a constant state of seeking their approval. They'd knock you down just to watch you get back up. It was sport for them. They'd reject you, ignore you, make you feel small, then sit back and watch you scramble to prove your worth. Then, just when you'd get close to their approval, they'd knock you down again. Every time they knocked you down, you got back up stronger. Every rejection built your resilience. Every moment they made you question your worth was actually teaching you to recognize it independently. They were unknowingly training their own replacement. This rejection cycle wasn't random cruelty, it was strategic conditioning. They needed you to associate love, friendship, and acceptance with struggle. They needed you to believe that anything worthwhile required you to prove yourself repeatedly. They needed you to internalize the belief that peace and ease meant you weren't trying hard enough. The really insidious part is how they made you complicit in your own diminishment. They trained you to anticipate their moods, to read their emotional weather patterns, to adjust your behavior based on their unspoken expectations. You became a contortionist of the spirit, twisting yourself into whatever shape would earn their approval, even temporarily. But what they didn't account for was the cumulative effect of their manipulation. Each cycle of hope and disappointment was teaching you something valuable about the difference between genuine connection and manufactured dependency. Each time they withheld their attention as punishment, you were learning to find validation from within. Each time they made you feel like you weren't enough, you were actually discovering reserves of strength you didn't know you possessed. Every master manipulator eventually overplays their hand. They get drunk on their own power and make the mistake of thinking they can push indefinitely without consequences. They become so confident in their control that they stop being careful about hiding their true intentions. And that's exactly what happened here. Timeline 3, the third-party triangulation. While all this was happening, there was another layer of manipulation at play. Someone has been orchestrating third-party situations, creating competition where none should exist, bringing other people into your dynamics to make you feel replaceable, expendable. They've been playing multiple people against each other, feeding off the chaos and confusion like a spiritual vampire at an all-you-can-eat buffet. But the universe was setting up its own triangle, chosen one. While they were creating artificial competition for their attention, authentic connections were being aligned in your path. Real recognizes real, and your frequency was already being matched by people who would never dream of making you compete for basic respect. The triangulation strategy is perhaps the most sophisticated form of emotional manipulation because it doesn't just target your self-worth, it targets your reality perception. When someone introduces third parties into your relationship dynamic, they're essentially gaslighting you about your own importance in their life. They're making you question whether your connection is special or if you're just one of many interchangeable options. They usually choose the third parties specifically to trigger your insecurities. If you're insecure about your appearance, they'll bring in someone conventionally attractive. If you're insecure about your intelligence, they'll introduce someone with impressive credentials. If you're insecure about your success, they'll parade around someone who appears to be thriving. It's psychological warfare disguised as social networking. What they're really doing is creating an artificial scarcity around their attention and affection. They want you to believe that love, friendship, and recognition are limited resources that must be competed for rather than abundant energies that flow naturally between aligned souls. They need you to think that their approval is so valuable that it's worth fighting others to obtain it. The triangulation serves another purpose too. It prevents you from forming direct, authentic relationships with the other people involved. Instead of potentially connecting with someone who might actually value you, you're positioned as their competitor. Instead of building a support network, you're trapped in a web of artificial rivalry. Instead of recognizing potential allies, you're taught to see threats everywhere. While they're busy orchestrating this artificial competition, your authentic energy is naturally attracting people who operate from abundance rather than scarcity. While they're creating manufactured drama, the universe is aligning you with souls who understand that real connection doesn't require competition. The people who are genuinely meant to be in your life don't need to be convinced of your worth through comparison with others. They don't need you to defeat competitors to earn their respect. They don't need elaborate competitions to determine who deserves their attention. They recognize your value immediately and authentically, without games or tests or hoops to jump through. You were never meant to walk this path alone. The Obsidian Inner Order isn't just another spiritual community. It's a sanctuary for the exiled, the awakened, the ones who've been gaslit for their gifts and abandoned for their truth. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces sharing real stories of transformation. There's a former CFO who embraced their psychic abilities, a seer who broke free from religious oppression, and a healer who survived ritual abuse and found their power. Dozens more join us who understand exactly what you've been through. This is your spiritual family, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you walk through this awakening alone, never gonna scroll past your suffering like it's just content. Your exile from the ordinary world wasn't punishment, it was preparation. For this, for us, for the family that chooses you back. Join the Obsidian Inner Order, link in description. Now here's where these timelines start converging, and where the rising action reaches its crescendo. Something shifted recently. Maybe it happened overnight, or maybe it's been a slow burn that finally reached its breaking point. You started asking different questions. Instead of why don't they value me, you started asking, why am I fighting for someone's attention who clearly doesn't recognize gold when it's sitting right in front of them? They're not just losing their power source, they're about to lose everything they built on the foundation of your diminished self-worth. See, Chosen One, while you were busy questioning whether you were asking for too much, whether you were being too sensitive, whether you should just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they threw your way, they were building their entire sense of self-worth on your willingness to accept less than you deserve. Their confidence wasn't authentic, it was parasitic, feeding off your insecurity. They convinced you that their league was above yours when the truth is there was never a league. There was just you, operating from a place of genuine substance, surrounded by people playing pretend with smoke and mirrors. They needed you to believe you were reaching up to touch them when the reality is they've been reaching down to drain you. Remember how they used to control the rhythm of your relationship, how they'd set the pace, determine the depth, decide when you were worthy of their time and attention. They created a pattern where you were always chasing, always proving, always earning. Except here's what they didn't anticipate. Eventually, you'd get tired of getting back up for their entertainment. Eventually, you'd realize that the game was rigged and the only winning move was not to play. So you stopped chasing, you stopped explaining yourself, you stopped fighting for scraps from people who should have been fighting to keep you at their table. And that's when their real panic set in. Because without you playing the role of the eager supplicant, their entire identity started to crumble. This is the moment where Timeline 1 crashes into Timeline 2 with devastating effect. The person who's been harvesting your energy suddenly realizes their supply line has been cut. The person who's been playing rejection games suddenly finds themselves rejected, not actively but passively, which is somehow worse. They've been replaced by your own self-respect, and they can't compete with that. They don't just accept this new reality quietly. Oh no, Chosen One. When a spiritual predator realizes their food source is no longer available, they don't just find a new hunting ground. They escalate, they adapt, they become more creative in their manipulation tactics. This is where the pretending reaches its most sophisticated level, because now they have to convince not just you but everyone around you that they're the victim in this scenario. They become master storytellers, weaving narratives about how you've changed, how you've become difficult, how you've abandoned the friendship or relationship without explanation. They paint themselves as the confused, hurt party who just wants to understand what went wrong. But chosen one, this is where that accumulated data I mentioned earlier becomes your superpower. You've seen this movie before, you know their patterns, you recognize the manipulation tactics, even when they're wrapped in pretty packages of concern and confusion. You can spot the guilt-tripping disguised as genuine worry. You can identify the love bombing masquerading as newfound appreciation. They'll try to re-enter your life through mutual friends, gathering intelligence about your current situation, looking for weaknesses they can exploit. They'll suddenly develop interests in things you're passionate about, hoping to create new opportunities for accidental encounters. They'll manufacture crises that require your specific skills or knowledge, betting that your compassionate nature will override your boundary-setting wisdom. Some might even go as far as to create situations where they appear to be thriving without you, hoping to trigger your fear of missing out or your competitive instincts. They'll post about amazing opportunities, new relationships or life changes that seem designed to make you question whether you made the right choice in walking away. You're no longer operating from the same frequency that those tactics were designed to manipulate. The pretending reaches its peak when they start borrowing elements from your growth journey and presenting them as their own insights. Suddenly they're interested in healing, in spirituality, in personal development. They start using language they learned from watching your evolution, hoping to speak your new language fluently enough to regain access to your energy field. But there's something they can't fake, chosen one. They can mimic the words, but they can't replicate the vibration. They can copy the behavior, but they can't duplicate the intention. They can pretend to understand the journey, but they can't manufacture the transformation. Real recognizes real, and pretend is obvious to anyone operating from authentic power. Timeline 3 is still playing out, and this is where things get really interesting. While they've been scrambling to rebuild their house of cards, something beautiful has been happening in your world. Remember those authentic connections I mentioned? They started showing up right on schedule. The path you chose, the one that was too healing for their comfort, started bearing fruit they never expected. Your intuition sharpened to a razor's edge. Your ability to see through manipulation became almost supernatural. Your energy, no longer being siphoned off by spiritual vampires, started attracting genuine opportunities and authentic connections. People started noticing you differently. Not because you changed your appearance or your circumstances, but because you changed your frequency. And this is where all three timelines converge into a perfect storm of cosmic justice. The person who's been watching you suddenly realizes they're being watched. The person who's been rejecting you is now desperately seeking your attention. The person who's been orchestrating triangulation finds themselves isolated, watching from the outside as you build genuine connections with people who value what you bring to the table. They're all the same person. Or if not literally the same person, they're all operating from the same playbook, all serving the same function in your spiritual education. They were all teachers, chosen one, even though they never intended to teach you anything except submission. Every person who treated you like you weren't enough was really just announcing their own deficiency. Every time they made you feel rejected, they were really just revealing their inability to recognize value. Every moment they had you questioning your worth, they were actually demonstrating why they don't deserve access to it. The cosmic joke is that while they were busy trying to convince you that you weren't in their league, you were busy evolving into a league of your own. A league where authenticity matters more than approval, where growth is valued over comfort, where mutual respect is the bare minimum rather than the ultimate goal. But chosen one, this awakening comes with escalating stakes because spiritual predators adapt, and the game is about to change in ways you need to be prepared for. They're going to come back with new strategies. Some will approach you with business opportunities that sound too good to be true, because they are. Others will craft sob stories designed to activate your compassion and override your discernment. A few might even try to use new people in your life as leverage, attempting to create triangulation and competition where none existed before. This is where that first timeline resurfaces with a vengeance. Remember the person who's been watching you, studying your patterns, They've been taking notes, and now they're going to use everything they learned about your vulnerabilities during the time they had access to your energy. They're going to offer expensive gifts with invisible strings attached. They're going to create elaborate scenarios designed to pull you back into their web of dysfunction. The sophisticated predator understands that direct manipulation won't work anymore, so they'll try indirect approaches. They might reach out through your family members, knowing that family dynamics can override your individual boundaries. They might connect with your professional network, hoping to entangle your livelihood with their agenda. They might even target your new relationships, attempting to poison those wells before you can drink from them. While they're busy scheming to reclaim control over your energy, the universe is orchestrating their exposure on multiple fronts. That person they triangulated you with, they're starting to see the same patterns. That colleague they manipulated to take credit for your work, they're beginning to question the narrative they were fed. That family member they turned against you, they're noticing inconsistencies in the story. The beautiful thing about truth is that it has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's been buried. The manipulator's web of lies starts to unravel when they no longer have your energy to help maintain it. Without you playing your role in their drama, the other actors start to see the script for what it really is, and this is where their pretending becomes not just ineffective, but actively damaging to their reputation. When you're operating from authentic power, surrounded by people who recognize real value, the manipulator's artificial performance stands out like a neon sign in broad daylight. Their desperation becomes obvious, their strategies become transparent, their true character gets revealed in high definition. They'll make increasingly desperate attempts to regain relevance in your life. They might spread rumors about your mental health, hoping to discredit your version of events. They might attempt to sabotage your new opportunities, believing that if they can make you struggle, you'll come back to them for support. They might even escalate to more dramatic tactics, sudden emergencies that require your immediate attention, health scares that demand your sympathy, or life changes that seem designed to guilt you into re-engagement. But chosen one, every desperate move they make is actually evidence of the power you've reclaimed. Their panic is proof of your progress. Their schemes are confirmation that you were indeed valuable enough to fight for. They're just fighting dirty because they have nothing authentic to offer. Remember all those times they knocked you down and you got back up? All that training wasn't for nothing. You developed pattern recognition. You learned to spot manipulation from miles away. Your rejection tolerance became so high that their approval lost its power over you. This is the climax, chosen one. This is where everything that's been building finally explodes into the open. The people who are coming into your life now are operating from the same frequency you've elevated to. They don't need you to prove your value because they can see it clearly. They don't need you to chase their attention because they're equally invested in the connection. They don't need you to fight for scraps because they're offering the whole meal. This shift is going to create chatter. People who took your previous availability for granted are going to have opinions about your new standards. They're going to call you difficult, picky, changed. They're going to try to make you feel guilty for no longer accepting their version of love, friendship, or partnership. They're going to paint themselves as victims of your growth. You're not just doing well without them, you're thriving. The success they convinced you was impossible without their approval is happening in spite of their disapproval. The connections they insisted you'd never find are finding you. The abundance they suggested was beyond your reach is flowing into your life naturally. You're not even trying to prove anything to them anymore. Your success isn't a revenge plot against your past. It's simply the natural result of someone finally operating from their authentic power, instead of from a place of lack and desperation. Remember that gnawing feeling I mentioned at the beginning? That sense that something was off, that you were being played, that there was a game happening around you that you weren't fully aware of. That feeling was your intuition trying to wake you up to what was happening. It was the universe's early warning system, alerting you to the fact that your energy was being harvested by people who had no intention of reciprocating. But now that same intuitive system is your navigation tool, guiding you toward connections and opportunities that align with your elevated frequency. The sensitivity that made you vulnerable to manipulation has been transformed into discernment that makes you virtually manipulation-proof. When they realize that their old tactics aren't working, they'll try to mirror your new language and energy. Suddenly they're talking about boundaries, about healing, about authentic connections. They'll use the very concepts you've embraced as weapons to try to guilt you back into their web. They'll accuse you of being unforgiving, of not allowing people to grow, of abandoning them in their time of need. You've learned the difference between genuine transformation and performance art. You know that real growth happens gradually, with consistent actions over time, not in sudden dramatic declarations designed to regain access to someone's energy. You've developed the ability to discern between authentic accountability and manipulative apologies. The karma element becomes crystal clear when you realize that their desperation to maintain control over you is actually preventing them from finding genuine connections elsewhere. While they're obsessing over what they lost, they're missing opportunities for real relationships. While they're scheming to reclaim their former position in your life, life is moving on without them. While they're pretending to change for your benefit, they're remaining fundamentally the same for everyone else. You're not even focused on their comeuppance anymore. You're not waiting for them to get what they deserve, because you're too busy enjoying what you deserve. You're not tracking their failures because you're celebrating your successes. You're not monitoring their struggles because you're invested in your growth. This indifference, this complete emotional unavailability to their drama, is the ultimate consequence of their actions. They worked so hard to make you need them that they never developed the ability to exist without being needed. They spent so much energy convincing you that you weren't enough that they never learned to be enough on their own. They invested so heavily in maintaining control over your perception of reality that they lost touch with reality itself. The pretending continues, but now it's primarily for the benefit of their remaining audience. They have to maintain the fiction that they're thriving, that they've moved on, that your absence doesn't affect them. But chosen one, you can see through the performance because you lived behind the curtain. You know the difference between their public persona and their private desperation. The energy that was once scattered across a dozen people who didn't deserve it is now concentrated and focused. The love that was once given freely to those who squandered it is now invested wisely in those who treasure it. The time that was once spent trying to convince people of your worth is now spent creating value that speaks for itself. This is what they really couldn't handle, not that you changed, but that you remembered. You remembered that your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. You remembered that your worth isn't determined by who validates it. You remembered that your power was never actually in their hands, even when you willingly placed it there. Every boundary you maintain gives someone else permission to set their own. Every standard you refuse to lower shows someone else what's possible. Every moment you choose your peace over their chaos, you're contributing to a collective consciousness shift that reaches far beyond your individual experience. The people who tried to keep you small didn't just underestimate you, they underestimated the ripple effect of someone claiming their full power. They thought they were dealing with just another person they could manipulate and control. They had no idea they were interfering with a chosen one's destiny. You weren't chosen despite your struggles, you were chosen because of them. Every person who underestimated you was actually preparing you for something they couldn't even imagine. Every situation that tried to break you was actually building the strength you'd need to break generational patterns. Every moment of feeling not enough was teaching you to recognize you're more than enough when it finally arrived. The karma they're experiencing now isn't punishment, it's just the natural consequence of interfering with spiritual law. Energy always seeks balance. What was taken will be returned. What was denied will be provided. What was delayed will be delivered. So when they come back, and they will come back, with their tales of transformation and promises of change, remember this moment. Remember the clarity that's flowing through you right now. Remember the peace that comes from finally understanding the game that was being played at your expense. Remember that your healing journey isn't just personal anymore, it's generational. And you, chosen one, are just getting started, because this isn't the end of your story, it's the end of theirs having any power over yours. That gnawing feeling that started this whole journey, it's been replaced by unshakable knowing. The conversations that used to stop when you entered the room, now they start because people want to hear what you have to say. The opportunities that used to slip through your fingers, they're now drawn to you like magnets. Play pretend all you want, but deep down you know it's karma. And karma, chosen one, always knows exactly what it's doing.